Do the skills know no bounds? Brother is back in action, man. Awesome stuff. Cannot wait for Ultimate X. It is going to blow the roof off Cape Town. Awesome to have some of the stars in studio. But we know there are no greater stars than Bob and Bella. In fact, we have such a love affair with our pets, but it does come with a great responsibility. Dr. Leandre Vanamava joins us this morning to talk about that responsibility that rests on our shoulders as the pet owner. We're talking specifically about responsible breeding. Now, this is something I can see from the look in your eye. This is something that is clearly very important to you. Why does it strike such a note with you?
Well, responsible breeding is, it's the basis of pet owning. That's where you get your pet. So when you start off on the right foot, puts you in the right direction. I think responsible pet breeding is not necessarily belonging to a specific affiliation or a club, or breeding show dogs for that matter. I think it's important that you consider the bitch's health, firstly, and that you take the necessary precautions to make sure that she gets through this process safely.
Yeah, I think that's highlighted with Frenchies in particular. We know that
yes.
Their life cycle is very interesting, and Bob wears that like a badge, sometimes depressed, sometimes over the moon, but you begin to realize that there is a huge amount going into the breeding part of the process. It's not just going and spending a lot of money on a nice accessory. These are animals that have to be cared for in a very specific way.
Look, it's a 15-year commitment. Most dogs grow round about to the age to about 12, 15 years. So it's part of your family. If you think about it, the amount of money you spend on other things, you're not going to keep your car for 15 years. Most people don't even stay in the same house for 15 years. So a pet is such an important decision.
What are some of those pitfalls? What are those situations and those moments that you've encountered that drive you up the wall? Why has this become such an important message to put out?
We get a lot of backyard breeding situations, puppies coming in, people getting the wrong info from the breeders. You must remember, as a breeder, responsible breeder, you are the first source of information for this new pet owner. It is your responsibility to make sure that the information you give out to these potential new owners are the correct and up-to-date information. A lot of pet owners believe that information that they get from the breeder, and even above the information that they get from the vet afterwards. So you have a big responsibility, and it's also your responsibility as the breeder of a specific breed to make sure that you talk to the owners about the characteristics of that breed, because people generally don't really go into what specific breeds are bred for, what they are, it's your responsibility to talk to people and explain to them, this dog was bred as an athlete. You can't keep it in the townhouse. Or a Yorkie. I mean, some people buy Yorkies and keep them as outside dogs. It's really impractical. They're lap dogs, that's what they're bred for, and that's what, that's
it's like having a child. You've got to child-proof that house. The environment has to be conducive when that pet, because you're not going to face the repercussions, but that animal is going to have to live with
Definitely.
that. So when we start this process, creating our own little passport, if you will, for your dog, what do we need to look into, and how do we go about making sure that everything is, up to scratch? Is there one governing body? How do we look into the situation?
There is quite a few different governing bodies. I wouldn't say necessarily that you have to buy a pedigree dog. I think that a breeder that breeds puppies in a healthy environment takes the necessary precautions, and the precautions I'm talking about is doing things like doing a pregnancy check at 3 weeks and making sure, is the bitch pregnant, before stressing about the whole situation and stressing her when she's not even pregnant. And then the next step would be to take x-rays in the last week of pregnancy to make sure what the litter size is, especially with dogs like these that have difficulty during...
I was going to ask, we've got an opportunity here to get a bit of background into this beautiful pair that they really are part of the family. What are some of those quirks or those things that we have to be aware of with Bob and Bella and their journey?
Okay, well, French bulldogs don't necessarily breed very easily. Most of the time, they have to be assisted during. I mean, some of them do get it, but most often they have to be assisted. AI, artificial insemination, often happens with the bulldog breeds. More often the English bulldog than the French bulldogs, but also something that needs to be considered with them. And then giving birth is quite, because of that broad skull of theirs, can be a bit of a difficult thing with them. We recommend taking x-rays in the last week before giving birth, so that then the skeleton is already calcified, so then you can see how many puppies there are in the litter. If there's only one or two, you really run into the risk of that puppies becoming too big and not being able to pass through the birth canal. If there's a big litter and you can assess that size and you can sort of guide the owner in the direction of this bitch would probably be able to give birth naturally, and if not, then we can schedule a cesarean. It's a good thing to have a good relationship with your vet beforehand, not arriving for emergency C-section in the middle of the night with a specific breed
you speak
like
from
this.
experience.
Oh, yes, I do. Especially if it's a breed that's known to run into trouble. Speak to your vet, walk a pathway with your vet. You know, if you do run into trouble, you know who to call.
And I think that's why these breeds come with such a hefty price tag. It is to enforce that responsibility.
Yes, exactly.
Leandre, thank you so much. It's been hugely enlightening. There's hope for you yet, my boy. But there is a massive responsibility on all of us as pet owners to make sure that we know our breeds and that we feed into that breed in the best way we can. Kat, you know, my mind is blown, dude. I cannot believe you pulled off an ollie on our balcony. You're going to have to put on a different hat now as we talk law.
Share the love with South Africa's most loved dog food, Bobtail, for strong South African dogs.